Good morning, everyone. Sorry, we're running behind. Technical difficulties. We'll begin this morning service. Thank you. Oops. Thank you for joining us this morning. Okay, we'll begin this morning service. Again, good morning. Welcome to this morning's service. We have a speaker this morning, so I'd like to get to our speaker as soon as possible. So if you would please begin, let's join together in Gassho and Golden Chain. I am a link in Amida's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I will keep my link bright and strong. I will be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will think pure and beautiful thoughts, say pure and beautiful words, and do pure and beautiful deeds. May every link in Amida's golden chain of love be bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Before I welcome our speaker this morning, I've been thinking about a question to ask Dharma school students. So here's the question. How many times do we ring the bell at New Year's Eve? How many times do we ring the bell, or are we supposed to ring the bell at New Year's Eve? What does it have to do with our Nenju? And what do those numbers mean? So there are three questions. You have to think about it. How many times do we hit the Kansho bell on New Year's Eve? How is it related to our Nenju? And what is the meaning of those, the number of times that we hit the bell? Okay, You have to study hard. Come back next week with a question, with the answer. All right. So our guest speaker this morning is Ms. Sumi Tanabe. Thank you for being so patient. I'm sorry we had problems with our system. Anyway, again, please welcome Sumi Tanabe. Thank you.
Thank you, Rinban. Thank you, Rinban. Good morning, everybody. Please join me in Gassho. As a mother watches over her child, willing to risk her own life to protect her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living things, suffusing the whole world with unobstructed loving kindness. Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu. Lately, we've been hearing so many negative news, like the mass shootings recently in 2 different places. And so this morning, I would like to talk about kindness and compassion. We are still in this pandemic. People are suffering from lack of jobs, food, and wondering how they're going to pay their next bills. Some states were hit with severe winter storms where they had no electricity, heat, and water, basic things that we take for granted. The good news is that more and more people are being vaccinated. The COVID-19 seems to be slowing down with less people infected in the hospitals. Parts of the Bay Area are now in the orange zone, where businesses, museums, ballparks are opening on a limited basis. Although it may be difficult, we need to relax a bit. Let's relax and take 2 or 3 deep breaths with slow, long, and complete exhalation. We often have difficulty loving ourselves, so we need to love ourselves first before loving others. So please repeat after me. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be peaceful and at ease. After a period of directing loving kindness towards yourself, think of a friend or someone who has deeply cared for you. Repeat after me. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you be peaceful and at ease. You will begin to establish a heartfelt connection to all those we encounter, friends and strangers alike. Next week is the opening of the baseball season. Are you a baseball fan? I am. I've been a San Francisco Giants fan for many, many years. Once they moved to the Bay Area, I kept wondering, when are they going to be in the World Series? I watched Barry Bonds break the home run records and was very disappointed in learning about his drug use. I thought he was a gifted baseball player and didn't need any enhancements. But then some good news came along with some young players, and suddenly the San Francisco Giants were transformed into winners. I love Buster Posey and even turned my grandson to a Giants fan. He lives in Maryland, and so his team before the Giants was the Baltimore Orioles. He named his puppy Buster. When the Giants won the World Series in 2010, I was so enthusiastic that I drove my sister-in-law to San Francisco to my daughter's condo, and then we took the BART to see the victory parade along with millions of fans. The parade ended at the Civic Center, where we were able to see the stage with the players, the managers, and the Giants organization, and there also was a giant screen. Because I am so short, I wasn't able to see very well, but a gentleman next to me offered his chair so I could stand on it. Kindness. The Giants went on to win 2 other World Series in 2012 and 2014. Those were very exciting years. As many of you know, the Giants and the LA Dodgers are arch rivals. 10 years ago, at the Dodgers Stadium, Brian Stowe, a Giants fan, attended the opening day. The Giants lost that game. When Brian and his friends were going back to the car in the parking lot, 2 unknown men wearing Dodgers outfit assaulted him. Brian was so seriously injured that he would spend 9 months in a medically induced coma. He had to relearn how to walk and how to talk. Today, thousands of children are the beneficiaries of his comeback. 5 years ago, his speech therapist brought Brian to an elementary school so that he could get acquainted with speaking in front of a group. 4 years later, he has built a platform as a public speaker to spread an anti-bullying message at more than 300 schools throughout the state. Brian starts his message by telling kids about his career as a paramedic. He encourages kids to help one another and seek out an adult to help if they are being bullied. He told them that he would not hurt anyone back, but to do the opposite. He said to show kindness and compassion. Brian Stowe doesn't show any bitterness or resentment because he has so much kindness. The Asian man into a driveway, and later he died. 5 precepts. 1, abstain from killing. 2, the fundamental principles that underline all 5 precepts are compassion, not causing harm, and generosity. We follow the precepts out of compassion, out of a sense of the suffering of others, and out of the possibility that others can be free of suffering. I have benefited by acts of kindness throughout my whole life, many, many times. When I was a child in the internment camp, we kids were playing doctor, and I got a bottle of iodine, which the cap was not secured. And when he pretended to use iodine on my face, the cap came loose and the iodine spilled all over my face. All the mothers in the block helped my mother try to prevent me from being disfigured or blind by getting thousands of raw eggs and placing them on my face for weeks. Kindness and compassion. After the war, the local police chief stopped by to talk with me. He must have sensed my loneliness because I had no children to play with. My brother had boyfriends, but there were no girls around in my neighborhood. Kindness and compassion. In the 5th grade, my teacher asked me to stay after school. I was nervous because I thought, what did I do wrong? But she sensed that I was being bullied. And so she encouraged me to stand up to the bullies and those students who stole my homework papers. I would complete my homework, so I never took homework home and left my papers in my desk. The next morning, my papers would be all over the floor. I never said anything to the teacher, but she knew kindness and compassion. Knowing that I probably would not be able to go to college, the high school vice principal gave me a job in his office so that he could teach me office skills, kindness, and compassion. When I graduated from high school, I didn't have money to attend college, but my high school business teacher and her colleagues gave me a $50 scholarship to attend Fresno City College. By today's standards, $50 is nothing, but in those days, it was enough to buy me textbooks, kindness, and compassion. When I told my coworkers that as a child, I didn't have very many toys, I certainly didn't have any stuffed animals. The next morning on my desk, there was a beautiful teddy bear, kindness and compassion. Standing in line with 3 young kids at a grocery store, I found that I was a few cents short and was fumbling around to get my wallet when the lady behind me gave the cashier the few cents. A complete stranger paid the rest of my bill, kindness and compassion. Last year, in the middle of the pandemic, I was hospitalized for 1 week due to low sodium and had to relearn how to walk and how to talk. When I came back, I received many emails, messages, get well cards, and even bright flowers. Kindness and compassion. Each and every day, let's try to show kindness and compassion. Let's show kindness and compassion, not for any badge or rewards or in recognition of even a thank you. Let's show kindness and compassion from our heart. Please join me in Gassho. Standing or walking, sitting or lying, during all one's waking hours, may one remain mindful of the heart and the way of living. That is the best in the world. This is from the Metta Sutra. Namo Amidabus. Namo Amidabus. Namo Amidabus. Thank you very much for listening. Please take care of yourself and stay well.
Thank you, Sumi. Wonderful message. Thank you very much. Because we're running late, we'll close this morning's service with Gassho and Nembutsu. Please take care of yourselves. Please take care of one another. And as Ms. Tanabe points out, kindness and compassion is something that we can do and receive every day. Please join in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you very much, everyone. See you next week. We'll begin now with our 10:10 service. We'll start with Kansho and begin the service. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's service. I will begin with the reading of Sambujo and Juseige. Please join us in the reading of Sambujo and Juseige. If you would please join now in the reading of the three treasures, and this is the first on page 8, three treasures. Hard is it to be born into human life, and now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the teachings of the Blessed One, now we hear it. If we do not realize the truth in this life, when will it be realized? Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we absorb ourselves in the principle of the way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves the supreme will. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we be submerged in the depths of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we live in harmony in the great assembly as disciples of Buddha and be freed from all hindrances, becoming units of true accord in a life of harmony, in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through ages of myriads of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. Thank you, everyone. We're back to an old familiar frame. And from this podium, we're able to welcome Dennis Akizuki as our speaker this morning. Thank you for joining us. Yesterday we had a long board retreat that Dennis participated in as well. Dennis is, of course, active in many of the projects and activities that we have at the Betsy. And as a minister assistant, Dennis is completing his second year of study in the correspondence course at the Jodo Shinshu Center. Thank you for your Dharma message this morning, please.
Good morning. Please join me in Gasho in reciting the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. I want to first welcome everyone who has joined us for the service, either live or going to view it later. Since we began regularly streaming services a year ago, people from outside San Jose and even California, and maybe even outside of the United States, have participated with us virtually. Last week, we had two people who joined us from Tennessee. If you're joining us for the first time or a relative newcomer, introduce yourselves in the chat section, which you should find on the right of the screen. Let us know if you'd like to learn more about Jodo Shinshu, which is our type of Buddhism. This morning, I want to talk a little about Sutra chanting, something we do at every service. But what are the sutras? The sutras are quite simply the words of Buddha. They are what Shakyamuni Buddha said as remembered by his disciples. More than 2,500 years ago, Shakyamuni Buddha shared what he had learned verbally to his disciples and others who went to hear him speak. After his death, his disciples gathered and had a kind of editorial meeting on what the Buddha taught. They wanted to continue his teachings. So they discussed and they talked about what they remembered his teachings to be. Their agreement was the foundation of Buddha's teachings. The sutras are not verbatim what the Buddha said, but are the essence, the key points, a retelling of his teachings as understood by his disciples who heard him speak many, many times. So the sutras begin with, "Thus I have heard," because the disciples are telling us what they heard the Buddha to say. The teachings or sutras are passed down orally and then eventually written down in Pali and Sanskrit, the languages of that time. As Buddhism spread, the sutras are translated into Chinese and Japanese. The sutras we chant here in the United States in the Jodo Shinshu temples are in those Japanese or Chinese Chinese Japanese forms. There are many, many sutras. The various schools and sects of Buddhism emphasize certain sutras. In Jodo Shinshu, which is our sect of Pure Land Buddhism, we emphasize 3 sutras known as the 3 Pure Land Sutras. Their English names are the larger Sutra of Immeasurable Life, the Sutra of Contemplation of Buddha of the Immeasurable Life, and the smaller Sutra on Amida Buddha. These sutras are not generally chanted in regular services. One of the reasons are they're too long. The smaller Sutra on Amida Buddha, which is in the larger service book, is known as Amida Kyo. It is chanted here in San Jose during Obon services, and the 3 of them are regularly chanted in our sect's head temple in Kyoto. Here in San Jose and many other Buddhist churches of America temples, the sutras we chant during our regular and special services are Shoshinge, or the Hymn of True Faith, which is a poem written by Shinran, the founder of our sect of Buddhism, in which he summarizes our teachings through the contributions of 7 great teachers of Buddhism. These 7 lived many years ago in India, China, and Japan. Another is Sambutsuge, or Praises of Amida Buddha, which is a part of the larger Sutra of Immeasurable Life. Another is Junirai, or the 12 Adorations. This is the poem written by Nagarjuna, one of those 7 great teachers that Shinran praised. And this is the one, when I was growing up, we used to chant every Sunday in church. And the one we chanted today in service is Jusege, or 3 Sacred Vows, which is also part of the larger Sutra of Immeasurable Life. We started the service, as we usually do, with Sambujo, 3 Respectful Callings, which is a poem written by Shantao, another of the 7 great teachers that Shinran praised. I'm not going to get into what the sutras talk about. That would take a long time, I think, and kind of beyond my ability to convey simply. But I wanted to talk about why we chant the sutras. I mean, after all, they're in a form that maybe perhaps the first generation Japanese Americans could understand. You know, they lived in the last century, but they're not really understandable to us today. Even in Japan, most people can't understand them as they're being chanted. The answer is there is no really one reason why we chant the sutras in their Japanese Chinese form. I'd like to thank Rinban Sakamoto, Reverend Mikame, Reverend Kenji Akahoshi of the San Diego Buddhist Temple, Reverend Ryuta Furumoto of the Senshin Buddhist Temple in Los Angeles, and Reverend Kiyonobu Kuwahara of the Berkeley Buddhist Temple for showing their views on why we chant. What people, ministers and others say is we don't necessarily have to understand the words we chant. If you keep doing it over and over, chanting can bring a soothing feeling. It's a way of unwinding from the troubles of daily life and preparing yourself to focus on the Dharma talk that's to come afterwards. Eventually, you can memorize a sutra. If you chant from memory, that can bring kind of a meditative state of mind, also helping to calm you to hear the Dharma, the teachings. You can become then one with the chanting and one with everybody else who is chanting. You can also chant in gratitude for the teachings of Buddhism that we receive during services and in our lives. Rinban Sakamoto said this about chanting and why we chant. The single answer is chanting prepares us to hear the Dharma. When we chant the sutra, we just chant. When we study sutras, we can unpack and discuss the meaning in the sutras. Here's what Reverend Furumoto had to say. When we chant, it is better to focus on voice and breath. While we are chanting, to think of the meaning of what we are chanting is not very important. Reverend Akahoshi recounted to me how he's heard sutras being recited in English. And he says he actually found that to be distracting to understand the words as they're being chanted. He prefers chanting in the way we chant now. Although I have to say, some Buddhists do like chanting English. Reverend Akahoshi said, we come together as a Sangha to voice the words of the Buddha or one of the masters. So we are oneness in our voices, come together in different tones, enunciation, and volume. Reverend Mikame said, I believe we chant sutras to acknowledge that we share the same teachings which were preached by Shakyamuni Buddha with other members just like his disciples, who preserved the oral teachings after Buddha's death. Chanting can be something spontaneous. It can be an appreciation for the teachings, according to Reverend Kuwahara. He said, when we appreciate somebody's kindness or help, we naturally say, thank you, or words of appreciation come out of our mouths spontaneously. When we are deeply moved, tears come naturally out of our eyes. When we are really happy, we may sing a song or dance. These are the examples that something within us manifests itself onto our bodily or verbal acts. I understand rituals and chanting are something like this. What Reverend Kuwahara is describing can be found in a couple of stories in the book American Sutra by Duncan Williams. This is the book, American Sutra, and Duncan Williams actually spoke about this. He came to the Betsuin to talk about his book at a couple years ago. It chronicles the experiences of Japanese American Buddhists during World War II. One of the people cited in the book is Hisa Aoki, the wife of Jodo Shinshu Reverend Tokumon Aoki. She wrote a diary that recounted her experiences during the war. And like an overwhelming majority of Buddhist ministers in the United States at the time, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Reverend Aoki was arrested by the FBI without any evidence or due process, basically because he was a Buddhist minister. On one occasion, his wife and two young daughters went to visit him while he was incarcerated. She described how through an opening in the wire mesh, he was able to touch the fingertips of the girls as they talk. The visit was supposed to last just 3 minutes, but they were able to talk for 7 minutes. After such an emotional experience, Aoki and her daughters returned home. They sat before the family altar, the Obutsudan, and chanted verses from Shoshinge. She wrote, only when praising the virtues of the Buddha am I able to forget the pain in my soul and feel the pleasure of peacefulness. Later, when as part of the government order to forcibly relocate 120,000 Americans of Japanese ancestry from their homes on the West Coast, Aoki and her daughter were moved to a temporary new home, which was called the Santa Anita Assembly Center, better known as the Santa Anita Racing Track. And their living area was a horse stable. She wrote, in all probability, we had been assigned to the dirtiest stable in the Santa Anita. Furthermore, right in front, there was a street lined with latrines. It is so dirty, so smelly, there's nothing to compare to this. I feel faint, and the smell of horse manure makes me want to throw up. I must make an effort to sleep. Unless I do, I will get sick. I cannot fall ill at this time. In the darkness, I held my palms together in prayer and silently intoned Buddhist sutras from memory. These are, as you can tell, very deeply emotional stories. So why did Hisaoki chant sutras in those dark moments of her life? As Reverend Kurohara stated, something within her moved her to recite sutras. Chanting the sutras were her way to take refuge in Buddha and persevere through whatever hardship she faced. And by the way, Aoki's diary was published as a book, White Road of Thorns, in Japan in 1953, and was a bestseller. Her older daughter later translated the diary into English, and it was published in 2015. So again, there's no one answer to explain why we chant. There's nothing in Jodo Shinshu doctrine that says we have to chant for a particular reason. What chanting means and why you chant is kind of up to you. And the answer doesn't have to be static. It could change over time and due to circumstance. If you're new to Jodo Shinshu, it could be a way to introduce you to the rituals. You can start by listening, then joining the chanting, concentrating on the words and where to take a breath in the lines. As you get more at ease, you can learn more about the sutras and what they talk about, and begin to feel that coming together as one when we chant. You can memorize them and chant from memory. You can begin to appreciate their meaning. And maybe in your life, there will be moments of despair or crisis when you're moved to chant the sutra silently from memory. Please join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you for taking the time to participate in this, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dennis. We appreciate your talk this morning. With our sheltering in place, we continue to have these virtual services. But as you mentioned, there are people stopping by from other parts of the country and perhaps even other parts of the world. I read in the chat this morning, someone else new joined us for today's service. And it's really nice to be able to share that and to share the experiences, your observations, your appreciation of the Dharma. Again, thank you very much for your message today. Thank you for all the things that you do at the Betsy. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for this morning's service. The 10:10 service didn't experience quite a quite a shocking breakdown on technology. The Dharma School service was delayed about 10 minutes. For some reason, our camera is not working now. The camera in the back our primary camera. And so we have to quickly move over to return to our iPad. And of course, these things fall apart at the very last moment before you realize that they're not working. We try to stay ahead of these things, but hopefully you will continue to be patient with us as we continue to share the Dharma. And please tell your friends, use social media, let others know that we have these services. I know there are many temples that you can visit. It doesn't have to be Sunday morning. Many of these temples have their services up on YouTube, and they're there for however long they continue to have their libraries available. So you can visit other temples, hear Dharma messages, or practice of the Portland Buddhist Temple has a regular daily service that is broadcast. I think Seattle Betsing also has a morning service that is also broadcast. So lots of opportunity to hear the Dharma. So I hope you will enjoy sharing the Dharma as they say, often say, push a subscribe, let others know of our services, and hopefully we can all enjoy the teachings of the Buddha, and find a sense of, Sumi's message this morning in the Dharma school service of compassion, of kindness, and a sense of oneness that we are all a part of, hearing the Sutra chanting, being a part, doing something together that is more than just ourselves, but being part of something that can hopefully nurture us, support us, lift us in our lives. Thank you very much again, everyone, for joining us this morning for today's service. As we conclude, will you please join in Gassho and Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, everyone. See you next week.